3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? This is the Board Game Roamer, and I am here with a playthrough of This War of Mine. This is an awesome game. It is a game. We've got survivors. We're basically trying to live out the last week or two of a war that's going on, trying to survive to the end of it. And we're basically going to go through a day. We're going to start, events going to happen at the beginning of the day that's going to affect some of the things we do. We're going to have our survivors. They're going to do some stuff at their house, which is what this board is. Basically, this is kind of like the house that they've holed up in to try to survive until the war is over. And they're going to poke about it, look around, check for things in the house that they can use. They're going to be getting equipment in the form of components, water, wood, electrical parts, mechanical parts, things of that nature. They're going to be able to clear out space. They're going to be able to build things. They're going to be able to discover new fittings, which are basically like beds. Well, let me just give you an example of a fitting. We've got bed, rainwater collector, trap, herb garden, metal workshop, moonshine steel, radio, simple heater, workshop, crude stove. All these are things that will give us bonuses, and we're going to be using electrical parts, mechanical parts, things of that nature, and they're going to give us basically actions that we can take, like for instance here, the bed, take a nap, lower the fatigue of the character, placed here by 2. So that could be one of the actions that they get during the day. And basically there's, you start out with 3 characters, and there's a ton of statuses. There's actually basically 5 statuses. There's hunger, fatigue, illness, misery, and wounds. And so as different things happen, those statuses are going to go up. So for instance, fatigue. With fatigue here, right, fatigue 1, you see that black mark? That means, that black mark means that we, if we have fatigue 1, if we have fatigue 1, then we lose an action, right? And then if we have fatigue 2, then, well, now we've lost 2 actions. So all these statuses are going to delay what we can do during the day. And then at night, in the afternoon, we have to eat. We do have to eat. We have to drink water, do those things. Then at night, we can go out. We can go to different locations, which are up here in the top left-hand corner of your screen, and search there, potentially encountering residents or just finding stuff to bring back. There is a limited amount of inventory space that each of these people have, so it is going to be limited by that. Just because we find it does not necessarily mean that we can bring it back. And then, of course, we're going to have, at night, there's going to be raids on the house. We're going to have to deal with that, garden our stuff. Stuff could potentially be taken. So there's that going on. We also have objectives. So there's basically 3 chapters is the way that it's set up for the story. And each chapter has an objective. Objectives are not required to be completed. So just because there's an objective there does not necessarily mean that we have to do it. But there will be a reward or a penalty if we do or don't do it. Okay. So for instance, I'll give you an example. I've already pulled the chapter 1 card is going to have us do this, but I've already done it. We have food for the hungry. We can discard raw food or canned food to basically move up this track either by 1 or 2. If we get to 4, we can immediately craft 1 fitting. It says even from the ideas deck. So there's basic fittings like the bed that I showed you. Then there's advanced things like enhanced heaters or other workshops and things of that nature that are going to be better for us. So that's the gratitude. If we fail, everybody's misery goes up by 2. So there's good things and bad things, and then there's basically The second one is water delivery. The same thing, up to 5. We get up to 5 water. This is for chapter 2. If we don't, we get raided and have to discard items, tokens, resources that are the most expensive, up to 6. We have to discard 6 of those. And then basically, assuming that we make it through, at least one character from the starting group must survive and have 2 or less on everything but fatigue. Okay, so that's kind of our goal. Hopefully we can do that. All right. So, oh man, what are we gonna do? So that's what we're doing. Also, what I have done with this is we're going to use a couple expansions. There are some playthrough videos of just the regular game. So I wanted to do something a little bit different, kind of like I've done with Massive Darkness. There's a lot of playthroughs, but there's not many campaigns, and there's not many campaign playthroughs of the Quest Crystal and Lava. So I wanted to do that, kind of something different with this. So what I've decided is I'm going to use 2 expansions. The first expansion is called the Heart of the City. This is a Kickstarter exclusive expansion, and basically there are a deck of cards. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 cards, and during the phases, there's certain phases where we can draw a Heart of the City card. And depending on what chapter we're in, there's this book also functions as the Book of Scripts, which I'll talk about the Book of Scripts in a second, but it functions as the Book of Scripts for this expansion, and it has entries that we'll read just like we read for the normal game. Also, what I've decided to do is include a second expansion, which utilizes actually really 2 things. There are several expansions. There's a tactics expansion and a sewers expansion, which are great, but they use the minis that this expansion that I'm actually going to play with utilizes, so I will not be able to use those. But the expansion that I'm going to use is called Our Street, and what happens is during each phase, at some point in time during each phase, we're going to roll. I'll show you an example. It's not a red card. We're going to roll a die, and it's not going to focus. It's going to, it's going to make us place. One of these days, I'm going to figure out the trick. It's going to make us place. You think if you get it that close, it'd do it. It's going to make us place soldiers or thugs. Or farmers. There's a thug. And soldiers and farmers. And we're going to place those in different locations, and depending on how many are there, it will affect what goes on in those locations each day as we move along. So that's what that does. And then the Heart of the City, whenever we finish scavenging, which is one of the phases, which is where we have a bunch of stuff that we find up here once we found it, but before we choose what we're going to take back at the end of the day, we have the option to go to the square, which is kind of what this angel broken statue represents. You can't see very well, can you? So it's right there. Just kind of thematic for the game. We draw 1 card from those 5 cards and discard it, and then basically once we draw all 5, then we're done with it. There's no reshuffling or anything like that. So that's what happens with it. So when we start, I've already placed everything out. You place all the cards out in the building that you're in, that you're taking shelter in. So we're going to have to explore the building and find stuff in the heat that's going to give us components and parts and things like that. Clear out rubble to try to get to access other areas. And when we explore, we're going to take this deck of cards over here, just to the side right there. This board is huge, by the way. We're going to take these cards and we're going to explore a location. It's any one of these 3 locations. Right now we have a construction site, a ruined villa, and a warehouse. They're different distances away depending on where they're placed. That determines the number of cards that we draw, and we'll resolve those. So obviously the more cards we draw, potentially the more stuff we can find, but we do have a limit inventory wise of what people can carry. So everybody has an amount of inventory that they can carry, and they cannot go over that weight. What else? Yeah, so we'll have findings has to do with the scavenging. Residence has to do with the scavenging. Also, there'll be raids on the house. Remember, this is about war, so there are potentially raids. Somebody will have to guard, or if they don't guard, then basically our stuff will get stolen. So that's that going on. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at our heroes. We have 3 heroes. The yellow, which you can't really tell super well, I'll call him out, is Boris. Boris has a prowess. So there's basically 3 stats for the heroes. Okay. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me do this. Hold on just 1 second, because I think this would probably be super beneficial in this case. And I don't know why I did not think of this earlier. If it'll show. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's take a look at the card. So, gosh, this is the card with lots of glare. No. Let me do this. Let me do the same thing I did with the massive darkness. Put this here, maybe if I... yeah. All right. So that'll let you at least see the stuff. So this is Boris. We all... Don't you slide off on me. All of the characters basically have 3 stats, if you will. Inventory in the bottom right hand corner is how much weight you can carry if you do scavenging, how much you can bring back. Empathy is used in certain entries in the journal, which again I'll talk about in a second, to determine effects, maybe rerolls, or what happens during the story depending on their empathy. Prowess is for combat. So whenever we have combat, we will be rolling, show it over here, these dice, not the 10-sided dice, these dice, depending on whether they're unarmed or they have a melee weapon, like say a hatchet, or they have a gun or a shotgun or something like that, and we will resolve combat with a single roll. Prowess is how many times we can re-roll dice. Okay. And then the spirit is basically at the end of the day. What will happen is when we draw a fate card, which is one of the cards we can draw, then it will say resolve A, B, or C. And everybody's A, B, and C is different. Some characters like Boris here, they have a separate A, B, and C. Some of them are combined. So for instance, one of them, our third character, Amelia, she has a spirit A, and then B and C are both together. It's the same thing. All right, so that's how that works. And they'll constantly be getting statuses, whether they eat or not eat, or drink or not drink, or they take wounds during combat, or when they're searching around, or whatever the case is. So that's Boris. Boris has a little bit of fighting too. Prowess is pretty good. The 6 inventory is awesome. So we're going to be able to bring a lot of stuff back with Boris. I don't know if it's going to be where you can tell it really with my setup, again, because I don't have the lighting correct, but he's going to be the yellow character. Then we have Bruno. Oh, he was a warehouse worker. Then we have Bruno. He is a TV host and chef. He has an empathy of 2 and a prowess of 1, an inventory of 3, and his A spirit resolution is interesting because some characters have a habit, and actually 2 of our characters have a habit. So what that means is if that's ever resolved and we don't have, in his case, a cigarette, in the case of Amelia, it's going to be coffee, then their misery goes up by 1 or something like that will happen. It's a pretty interesting dynamic because it means that some of the ancillary stuff like that you may not use because you don't have an item, a workshop, or you don't have something that you use to craft it, that you need to craft it, or you haven't, used it to barter with because there is no money, is actually necessary. So that is Bruno. And last but not least is Amelia. She was a lawyer. She is Bruno, by the way, is the green player. Amelia is the red player. She has 1 prowess, 3 empathy, and 3 inventory. And like I said, she was a lawyer. She likes coffee. Everybody starts out with 2 hunger, and everything's out here. Anything else we do that happens, I'll kind of explain it as we go for the first couple rounds. Like I said, there are other playthroughs and rules explanations out there, so I don't want to spend necessarily a whole lot of time doing that if I can do that. But if you watch me often, you know that usually ends up not being the case for me. But I'm going to try. Give it the old college try. But, all right, so I think, I think that's what we're going to do for now. So, let's get started. All right, so day number 1. So just also, I didn't mention this. Let me go ahead and mention it. Like I said, this event deck, right? Basically, this is our day timer. How many days we have? So we have approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. About 2 weeks. 13 cards. A couple of those are pull them off, so maybe 10 days, something like that. So just a little over a week. Just a little over a week, and so that's what we're gonna do. Also, I would note that the Heart of the City can only be used in campaign mode, which is what we're playing. Playing in, because the cards are chapter based, and there are a couple of optional ways to play that are basically like just really long days, or a really long day. It's got a lot going on for a shorter game. So there are different options, but for what we're doing, we are going to be able to use that. So let's start with the first day. Now, the way this normally would work is you have this journal, and basically this journal, it walks you through setup, and then it walks you through each of the phases, and you go through this journal, do what it says, and then you pass it to the next player. Well, obviously, there's not another player here but me, so I'll be doing each of the sections. And also on the day actions, the way it works is each character can perform up to 3 actions. There's first, second, and third action. Right, or stages. So basically, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place everybody just because it's easier for me to keep up with. Doug Herring did this in his video that he did. He did do a playthrough of this, but he did not use any expansions, and it seemed to work really well. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna place each person, tell you what you're gonna do, and then resolve them, and just keep doing that until everybody's worked through their actions. Okay, because it just the first part is just working through everybody's actions. So that's what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is the morning phase. The morning phase says we draw and resolve the top card from the event deck. So we will do that now. And the top card of the event deck says that you probably won't be able to see it well because of the glare. Am I right? Of course I'm right. Huh. Oh, that's good. Will that work? Oh. Alright, I'll just have to read it to you. Alright, it says, when the Civil War broke out, many people thought it would be only a couple of weeks. It's been a year since the military surrounded the rebels in the capital, cutting off the supply lines. Let me get rid of this. The civilians... Gosh, it's not a good way to do that. Again, it's because I'm right underneath these lights. The civilians... still trapped in the city, suffer from hunger, disease, and the constant threat of shelling. It's another day of desperate waiting for the end of this terrible war. And it says determine the objectives. We've done that already. I've already pulled those. You do a final objective and then 2 more objective cards. We've done that. We know what they are. So, actually, I put this on the wrong side. I should start over here. Once we do that, at the end of each chapter, resolve any reward penalty from the corresponding objective card. And then after we resolve this card, remove it from the game. So this card is gone from the game completely. And the cards on the inside here will also be that way as we search. All right, and that's just basically going to be opening up room for us to do things. So, first things first. I think for the first action. Now, also note that everybody has hunger 2. You can see from the token here that means that they have 1 less action. And I would also point out that, for instance, let's say that there was a hunger 2 and a fatigue 2, right? So you'll see here, I know you can't see the 2 very well, there you go. You see that has 2 black dots on the fatigue and 1 black dot on the hunger. That's a total of 3 black dots, but that's not how the actions work. It's just the most covered up on any one of the statuses. So in this case, if they had hunger 2 and fatigue 2, they would still have 1 action left. And then if they ever get to 4, then basically there's an epilogue that we read and they walk off and something happens to them, or they don't make it through the war, or something like that. But remember, either Boris, Bruno, or Amelia have to make it through here in order for us to complete our objective. Let me see if I move this over, if that helps any. Nope. Still just a big black dot. Alright, put the hunger 2 back over here. So, having said all that, well, I think the first thing we should do is search the heap. And also, these cards block each other. So, like, I can search the heap here, but I can't, at the same time, have somebody search this heap because I haven't gone through this in the house. So, I think first things first, we're going to search a heap with him. Then we're going to clear out rubble, and I'm going to have them take the shovel because that will totally do it. So Boris is going to go through the heap, Bruno is going to clear the rubble, and Amelia is going to attempt to unlock a closed door using the lockpick. Put that up there with her. So that is basically the first action stage. So let's go through and resolve it. Now, for lockpicking, we'll start with that. We roll a d10. So the game comes with some regular d10, or the Kickstarter came with these. We'll roll this d10. And on a 1 to a 3, nothing happens. On a 4 to a 10, we discard the lockpick. And let me double check. Yeah, so discard means it goes back into our supply box. So over here off to the side, I've got this supply box. It's got all the tokens, all of the wound counters, markers, the extra players, all that sort of stuff. All that's in this box. So it would go back into this box if it's in the box. Now, there is a system they have to save this where stuff goes into what they call a waste bag and a keep bag, and you put it all in there. And because of the way that I play, I'm not going to have to worry about that. If it says discard it completely, then I'll set it to the side. Because discard means it goes into the box. If it says remove token resource card, it goes into what they call the waste bag, which basically means it doesn't go into the box. It's out of the game permanently. So that's the way that works. So anyway, back to what we're doing. Like I said, we're looking at the closed door here for the lockpick, so we're going to roll a d10. She rolls a 2. There's the 2. Which you can't really see, but that's 2. And that means nothing happens. So we're going to put her back here on the guard space so we know that's taken care of. The rubble. We've dug through the rubble. And so what happens with the rubble card is it flips, and on the back we see rubble remnants. So basically it would require another action of digging through to clear those out, to clear that card out permanently. Put the lockpick down here. And then Boris is up here at the heap. He searches the heap. And we flip the card over, and it says you gain 1 lockpick, 2 components, and 5 wood. So we go to our parts here. 1 lockpick goes into our stash. 2 components, that is these gears, and 5 wood. Now, there is a special spot on the board over here that says storage. If I put something there, that shows that there's 5 of it, and I can trade that in later. But if there ever comes a point in time where, for instance, let's say that I have a 5 there and I want to trade it in, but there's only 4 wood in the supply, if I do that trade, I only get the 4 wood. So you can use that just to keep track and not have a bajillion things down here. But there are possible scenarios where that may not be helpful. So that takes care of the first set of actions. This card is add these to the storage and remove this card from the game. So they're removed from the game just like the other card was. That was our first action. So now we're going to our second action. I think we're going to basically do the same thing again. We're going to attempt to pick the lock with Bruno. Amelia is going to search the heap, clear out the rubble. And Boris is going to go through the heap. Now remember, this is our second. Oh, you know what? Well, okay. I'll finish this and then we'll talk about something else that I forgot to do. Because I'm not used to playing with the expansion. So it wouldn't really matter. So we'll start with the lockpick first. And we roll. That's an 8. So the pick is successfully done by Bruno. So we'll put that here. Lockpick is discarded back to the box. Now, fortunately for us, we did get the other lockpick, so we do have that for use either in the house or as we go out here and search later. And that successfully means with that lockpick we gain 3 wood. And then we remove that from the game. So 1, 2, 3 wood. Okay. Then we have Boris, who searches the heap, which is going to give us more stuff, hopefully. That's going to give us 1 weapon part, 1 sugar, 5 components, and 2 wood. So 1 weapon part. And again, this is an example of something that can be used, traded. The black says 1, that means it's got a weight of 1. And the yellow is 2, that means it's got a trade value of 2. So we have 1 weapon part, 1 sugar, there's coffee and vegetables, 1 sugar, 5 components and 2 wood. So 5 components and 1, 2 wood. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and put, while I'm doing that, 1 of those in there to represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 regular wood. Back over here. And the same thing, I think, for, no. Alright, so that is the actions for searching the heap. Then we have the clearing of the rubble. The shovel does not get discarded. And these rubble remnants are gone permanently from the game. Okay, so what I just realized, because I'm not used to doing it, is I did not do the morning phase expansion roll. Alright, so it says in the morning we roll a die. At the beginning of each morning phase we roll a die. Alright, we got a 2. So there's a result table. Result 1 to 2. Place 1 soldier figure on the outside space or on the findings pile. So either we can go to the outside space. And so basically the outside space is we have visitors. That's a way for us to get a 4th person in. That is a way for us to trade potentially. Or we can put him on the findings pile. And I believe as we're searching, it's going to make searches and potentially basically run-ins with the soldiers more likely. If we do go outside, we have to roll a black die. If they roll a 1, they're hit by sniper fire. They take some wounds, take some damage. Once that's done, because we have 3 characters, we'll pull from a visitor's deck, which is right up here, the top of the screen, and resolve that card. I guess we'll put him out here. And then, so the other options, when we're raiding, basically, if they go out here to the outside space when we're raiding, it's going to make raiding a little bit more dynamic, potentially more dangerous. But with the findings, we're not going to find as much stuff, possibly, depending on what's up there. So, we'll see what happens. Alright, so that's the 2 actions. So that is the end of the morning phase and the day actions. So now we go to the dusk phase. It says each character must drink 1 water, and if they don't, we roll the D10. There's a lot of D10 rolling. And depending on what we roll, either their hunger or misery will go up. So I'm going to say that Boris and Bruno drink water. Amelia does not, so we're going to roll the die. We got a 9. That means her misery goes up by 1. So let's find a misery token. Now, fortunately, misery 1 is no action deduction, so she still is able to perform. Let me scoot this over just a little bit. Hopefully I can, if I do this right, you'll be able to see all of their statuses as they're added. Oops. Potentially up to 5 of them added. So with the misery 1, it does not affect what she can do. So that's cool. That is dusk with the water. Then we have hunger. Each character should eat 1 or more food. If they eat raw food, their hunger is lowered by 1. If they eat canned food, their hunger is lowered by 2. If they eat vegetables, their hunger doesn't change. And if they don't eat anything, they get a hunger 1. So we do have 3 raw food. Now hunger 3. Hunger 3 is also only 1 action point deduction. I guess we'll just use all 3 of the raw food. And that's going to reduce all of their hungers by 1. So everybody's going to go to hunger 1, which is going to give them all 3 full action points. Assuming that the next time we get around to that, they're not hungry again. Then we go to the evening phase. So evening we have 4 options: sleep in a bed. If we had one, we do not have a bed, although we probably should consider building that. Yeah, consider building that and something to do board up. Haven't talked about cold, but each one of these event cards that we pull has cold tokens that we add up here, and at the end, basically, of the day, depending on how cold it is, we'll roll, and people could potentially get ill or wounded, or something bad's going to happen, basically, if we don't use these board up tokens, which are right here. Right, and so there's different spaces on the board. Here's a hole, here's a hole, there's a hole over there on the roof, there's maybe another hole somewhere underneath one of these cards. But basically, if we don't board those up, then they're letting in cold air, so we could get ill, get sick because we don't have heat. So we do have to consider that. So, but the other option for evening, like I said, is we sleep in the bed. That reduces the fatigue of a character to 0, whatever it is. They can sleep on the floor. Their fatigue is reduced by 2. Or they could guard. And if we don't, you cannot have somebody there, but that would only be the case. But if you don't, there's a special entry, which is really bad. I mean, your stuff just gets going away, probably. I don't know. I've never not had anybody there. If somebody guards, they have a fatigue raised by 1. And if they scavenge, which is they go out here, their fatigue is also raised by 1. So, I think what we're going to do is we definitely want Boris to scavenge because his inventory is 6, so he can bring back the most stuff. The inventory is the same on both Bruno and Amelia. So we'll take Bruno and leave Amelia to guard. So we've got Bruno and Boris up here at the top, Amelia here to guard. That means that everybody gets a fatigue 1. And again, that is unfortunate, but it is definitely necessary. That also unfortunately means that everybody now is back to their 2 action points instead of their full 3. So that is unfortunate, but it is life during the war. All right. So evening is done. We don't have anybody on the outside space because that's the previous phase. And then scavenging. So we choose a location, but first, checking the card. The scavenging card for our Streets expansion says at the end of the scavenging phase, but before the choose finding stage. So we'll do this findings part as we normally do, and then roll. So when they go, I am going to send a lockpick with them. So we'll put that on Boris's card as a reminder. So the first thing with scavenging is you have to pick a location, and depending on the location you pick, it has a distance. So each location is unique. Each location has a list of special findings. So different things you can find. For instance, up here at the construction site, we can find mechanical parts, vegetables, and shovel. Or we might find nothing. At the ruined villa, we've got books, mechanical parts, raw food, a knife potentially. At the warehouse, sugar, mechanical parts, weapon part, canned food, and a hatchet under special findings. And what they are is a distance. So the one at the farthest down is closest, and we get the most exploration cards because it's not the most, not too far away. The one at the top, we get the fewest exploration cards. When we do the exploration piece, I think that, and you can't check two different places. You have to check the same place. All right, so you're both going in together. So I think what we're going to do is search the warehouse, because the warehouse has an option for canned food, which is awesome. And we'll get the most cards. So we have the exploration deck. So I'm going to shuffle the exploration deck, shuffling the exploration deck, shuffling the exploration deck. Okay. And then the number is 14. Let me put these guys on here. So the number is 14. So we're going to draw 14 cards out of this deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's the 14 cards. We're going to put them on the unknown pile. All right. We're going to put the exploration cards back over here. And now we're going to start going through this deck of cards one at a time until we've gone all the way through the deck and successfully resolved everything in the deck. Now, this is where the Book of Scripts comes in, primarily. As we go through these decks, at some point we may be asked to draw a color card, which is over here to the right. There are 5 colors on the card. You can see on, for example, do I have a card that's a good example? This is not a good example. So here's a resonant card. So at the bottom of the resonant card, although you can't see the numbers, you can see the 5 colors. So each one of those colors has a number, and that is an entry in the Book of Scripts. The Book of Scripts has almost 2,000, yes, 2000 entries. And so we'll be reading from those entries. Sometimes it's just we're not finding anything, we're just moving upstairs or something like that, or we may run into somebody and a resonant card potentially, and then we'll have an exchange with them. All that dialogue and all the options that we have are going to be handled with that deck. Now, the way that the rules read with a color deck is that you are supposed to pull a color. If you're required to pull from the Book of Scripts, it'll tell you to pull a color, look it up, and then you shuffle the deck. The way I'm going to play it, just so that you kind of get an idea of all the different types, because each color sort of represents something good or bad, or a specific aspect of the war. So I'm going to pull a color card and just pull them from top to bottom however they come. Each time we need one, once I go through all of them, I'll shuffle them up, and then I'll just do that so that you get kind of a good idea of what's going to go on in each one of the different colors. So that's how I'm going to happen. That's how I'm going to deal with it. So we're going to start with the first card. It says hiding place. You may ignore this card or return 2 exploration cards to save it and use it anytime during the scavenging phase. And basically that's going to allow us to ignore an encounter so we don't see anybody, or we can perform a backstab, which is where we get to do damage potentially before somebody that we may have to fight gets to do damage. All right, so which can be helpful. I'm just going to ignore it for now. We want to try to get as much stuff as we can. Second card, basement entrance. Okay, so each one of these locations has what they call open space, or it'll say, it'll have a list of special things like basement entrance, bars, closed door, etc., etc. Some of the cards that you pull, again, I know that's hard to see, but at the top, it'll say map card, check the current location for a basement entrance. And then, depending on whether there is one or there is not one, it will let you set it to the side, or you'll have to discard it basically and draw another card from the exploration deck to replace it. So, at this location of the warehouse, we have a map card, check the current location for a basement entrance. There is a basement entrance. So, in that case, you may resolve this card immediately or place it on the exploration slot and resolve it later. Basement entrance. Um, um, it says we can enter, raise the noise by 3 and roll. If we choose to resolve it, and after entering, there's some things that happen. I mean, we might as well. So let's talk about noise. So noise is kind of a gauge on how much noise you make, whether you're going to attract attention or run into people. So what you do is you have the noise track. It goes from 1 to 8. As you do things with these cards, you draw them. They're going to say raise the noise and roll. If you roll the D10, you compare your roll to the noise, and if the noise if the noise, the result that you roll is equal to or less than the current noise, you have an encounter with a resident, which we'll pull from here. The noise resets back to 1. And we actually start out on 1. So this says raise the noise by 3. So actually our noise is going to go all the way up to 4. I'm going to roll the D10. We rolled a 6. So we actually did not make any noise. Make sure I put these in the right place back. Did not make any noise, so we're good. Now we resolve the card. It says after entering, which is what we just did, add 5 cards from the exploration deck to the unknown deck. 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those get added. It doesn't say whether it's top or bottom, so I'm going to assume bottom. Also, you may discard this card during the scavenging to draw and resolve 2 finding cards instead of 1. So that goes over here to a map card. So residents, hiding places, and map cards go over here. So that'll sit over here, and we may potentially be able to use that. So then we'll draw the next card. Rubble says a map card, look and see if there's rubble. In this case, there is no rubble. So discard this card and draw a new card from the exploration deck. So this card, in this case, would go to the discard pile. We actually pull 1 more from the exploration deck. Okay. It says if they're check the location for the open space, which there is open space. If there is an open space, resolve it immediately. So open space. So it says move carefully, return 2 exploration cards, and raise your noise by 2. So 1, 2. So 2 exploration cards. Again, I'm assuming it goes to the bottom. Go over there. Raise your noise by 2. If we want to move carefully, or we can roll by raise the noise by 3 and roll for the noise. You know what? I ain't afraid of no ghosts. We're going to leave those exploration cards here. I may end up regretting this, but we going to do it. And we're going to raise our noise by 3, which is going to put us at 7. So odds are very good that we're going to run into a resident. And I believe that is another 6. Yeah. So in this case, we do run into a resident, so this gets discarded. But we run into a resident, the noise marker is reset to 1. We pull the top resident card, and we have rats. Perform a backstab. See journal combat sheet. Character present deals 3 or more wounds. They manage to catch and kill something, and that might be edible. Add 1 raw food to the findings pile. Afterwards, remove this card from the game. Okay, so we're going to pick somebody. So I'm going to say Bruno, because he has the most rerolls. We're going to take the gray die, right? And we're going to go to the dice tray, and we're going to roll. So we're going to get to roll if we do 3 wounds, which there is actually... there's not 3 on this dice. Interesting. So the question then becomes combat. Light raid. Combat sheet. Dawn. Combat. Each round you roll a combat die for each character and enemy. So we're going to roll this gray die twice. As a matter of fact, because there's 2 of those, we'll roll 2. Now I've got 2 die. One the normal die, and then the extra enhanced Kickstarter die. So we're going to roll that. Now remember, and I'm going to say that the Boris gets the Kickstarter one, and Bruno will get the other one. We're trying to get a total of 3 damage to get this rat, so we're going to roll it once. Wow, nobody got anything. Boris has 2 prowess, which means he can re-roll the die twice. Bruno has 1 prowess, which means he can roll his die once, so they're both going to roll. Okay. Now that's no hits for Bruno and 2 hits for Boris. But even if we rolled again, Boris can't hit, so we did not take out the rat, unfortunately. So the rat scurries away, and we do not get the food. And this card, rats, goes out of the game. So that resonance card. Now, here's what makes the resonance deck rough. Before the game started, as part of setup, I had to set aside essentially the negative, the thugs, the soldiers, encounters that we potentially could have in the resonance deck. And it basically it happens at the end of the day is either, and the same thing for the night raids deck, I have to add one of those 2 cards in. Actually, you have to add 2 cards. You can add 1 to each, I believe, or I don't know. We'll see when we get there. But basically, those negative cards will get added back in, which can be not good. Let's go to the next card. I think I saw something. Return as many exploration cards as you wish, and roll the black die. Add the number of the returned exploration cards to the result. If it's a 1 through 5, we draw and resolve a resonant card. Let's return. I think I'm going to return 2, maybe. Just because we don't want to burn through all the good resonance on the first go round. And then we roll the black die. Crap. Which is a 2. So we do run into a resident. Guess I should have done another one. Oh, reality impact. Okay, so these are not really residents, but you are going to draw. This again is like I said before when we start going to the book of scripts. So reality impact, something unexpected has happened. Draw a card from the colors deck to determine the color of the script, then reveal the top card of the resonance deck and check the number with that color on it. Find that number in the book under scripts and resolve the corresponding text. Afterwards, shuffle this card back into the resonance deck. So this one doesn't go away. We resolve it, shuffle it back in, and we potentially could pull it later. So it says, draw a card from the colors deck to determine the color of the script. Colors deck is blue. Set this over here to the side. I don't know why that was turned the wrong way. So, and then it says reveal the top card of the resonance deck. So we look at the top card. That's the other rats card, but we look at the entry here in the corner. That's blue. That entry is 445. So we're going to look at entry 445 in the book of scripts. So this, I'm telling you guys, look at this. All these entries, pages and pages and pages, and it literally goes to, let's see, 1,947 entries. All right. So we're reading 445. All right, it says, catch that little thief. First we hear a shout, then out of nowhere appears a small boy in filthy torn clothes. He trips in front of us and falls on his face, scattering the contents of a backpack. There's mostly food and assorted junk. Thief, the shouting is getting nearer. The boy's fear-filled eyes beg for mercy. There's blood under the fingernails of his right hand. So we basically have three options. We'll help him hide from whoever is chasing him. And then we roll a die. Depending on that roll, we pull a different entry. We're not taking any chances. Those angry voices sound threatening. We wait. We're not getting involved. Or let's grab him and hand him over to his pursuers. I mean, I'd like to think we're pretty nice guys. So let's roll the die. We rolled a 9. So that says see entry 1825. So let's go to entry 1825. There is also a lot of going back and forth in this book. Passed it. 1825. Hurry, hide over here. We tell him, pointing to a wardrobe behind us. We place the scattered items in the backpack and then stash it in the wardrobe behind the boy. After a while, two men appear. The face of one of them is bloodied from scratches. Did you see a young boy run this way? That runt stole our things, gasped one of the men, panting from exhaustion. Yes, someone ran down the corridor and then down the stairs, we answer. The men nodded gratitude and continued running in the direction we pointed. Feeling proud that we'd helped a child, we moved towards the wardrobe to free him. We were quite astonished to find it empty. Our bewilderment turns to anger as we realize that some of our things have been taken. Discard any 2 tokens from the findings pile. Okay, and then it says back to the game. So fortunately for us, we helped this kid out. Turns out he was just a thief, basically. We did not have anything in the findings pile, so there was nothing for him to steal. If we had had some items in the findings pile, that would have really sucked. So, yep, that card gets discarded. The Reality Impact and Rats card that we used to draw the colors gets shuffled back into the Resonance deck. So let's shuffle that Resonance deck back up. All right. So that's cool. Next card. Reality Impact. Another one. A Reality Impact. This is from the Exploration deck. Something unexpected has happened. Draw a card from the colors deck, which is a gray. And then draw a card from the Exploration deck and check the number with that color. So this is entry 288. Now, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. I'm assuming that if I draw that card, I have to discard it. So I'm going to do it for now, for the colors. If that is not the case, then somebody let me know. I'll try to double check on BGG and see, but that's the way I'm going to assume now. So we're looking for gray. That number's 288. So entry 288 in the book of scripts. All right. 288. Sound of a metal can can be, whoops. The sound of a metal can kicked around echoes across this area. There are two kids outside the window. One of them is about 5 and is using crutches. The other one is about 3 years old, and the older boy is missing a leg. He's standing over the smaller boy, and with a solemn expression on his face, he's making him kick the can like he would do himself if he still had both legs. The little one turns to face him and is trying to salute him with a stub he has for an arm. We turn away. Back to the game. So, kind of a very sad story moment. And I will say this about these entries, like, most of them are not very happy at all. I mean, they're not happy things. But the designers of this game created it to kind of show the atrocities of war, which is why this book of scripts is so thick. So there are pretty legit real life things that are in these stories that will make you think. So that would definitely be one of them. All right, so we draw another card. Door. Peek through the keyhole. Return one exploration card to look at the next card from the unknown deck, or enter. Raise the noise by 1 and roll for the noise. Well, I'm going to say enter. It's only raise it by 1, we'll roll. Oh my gosh. Seriously? So we failed the noise. That is amazing. So that goes down. We pull a resonant card. Civilians. Turns out that there are miserable looking people hiding in here, mostly the elderly, women, and children. Place this card in the exploration slot until you leave. Whenever you take anything from an exploration card marked as private, roll the black die and compare this result with the empathy of each character present. A result equal to or less than the character's empathy equals raise their misery. We can either talk to them, return a card to exploration card to talk to them, or trade to them. Trade with them. Well, we don't really have anything to trade. So, since we don't have really anything to trade, let's just continue on. We really need some food. Good grief. Another reality impact card. Although I need to double check something here. Alright. It says draw a card from the colors deck to determine the color of the script. So this is going to be green. Then check the number with that color on the exploration chart on this location's card. So the exploration chart on this location is 906 for green. Find that number in the book of scripts, and then we place this card underneath here. Alright, that goes underneath here. And that's going to stay until that location is removed from the game. So that basically that exploration card now comes out of this potential deck until that location is removed. And there that happens at the end. So we're looking at green. 906. Let me double check this card. Check, draw card. Yeah, okay. So green, so that's a 906. So we're going to go to the book of scripts, page 906. Suddenly, we heard the sound of shifting rubble and the hum of conversations. We sneak up closer to see what's going on. With dust-covered hands, people move aside rubble, slowly uncovering a buried door leading to a closed-off part of the warehouse. The workers wipe sweat off their foreheads, resting by sitting down from time to time. A water bottle is passed from person to person. Everyone is taking a sip before getting back to work. So we could either offer to help and take part of what we find, whatever they find, basically as our share, or we could go back to the game. I say we offer to help. So that says go to entry 1867. So let's find, good grief, 1867. They do not refuse. They do not refuse our offer to help them. We get down to work. We remove the largest pieces of rubble. Sometimes we use a pickaxe to break apart the biggest rocks. It is, of course, difficult and arduous work. All the conversation revolves around one subject. Supposedly, after many months of fruitless efforts and threats, the countries that have involved in the political help to resolve the conflict have finally withdrawn. Is it true? Are we alone? But haven't we really been alone all this time, from the very beginning until now? We keep working. Raise the fatigue of all characters present by one, returning all remaining exploration cards. Or we decide to give up, return 2 exploration cards, and back to the game. Well, let's see here. So we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards to go through. So I'm going to say we're going to return, we're going to do 2. Discard 2. Discard 2 cards. Let's see here. Yeah. Well, let's see here. Let me double check here. Some of the wording in this is very confusing. Like, return is not the same as discard, I don't think. Remove. Well, okay. I'm going to assume return means the same thing as discard. So a discarded 2. We go for another one. Jammed door. Look at the map card. Does it have a jammed door? If there is no jammed door, discard this card and draw a new card from the exploration deck. So there is no jammed door. So we will pull this. Stairs down. Look for another way. Return 3 exploration cards or enter, raise the noise by 3 and roll for noise. What the heck? We're going to roll for noise because we like that. Oh my goodness, Doug Herring. There's your ghost visiting me. Alright. So we're going to have another resonance. And it's the rats. So we know what that means. I'm going to go over here and oh, you know what? I tried to do the rats earlier and I did not return an exploration card, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Because the rats, it says you may return 1 exploration card to try to catch one. Otherwise, we would get rid of it. So I am going to try to, I'm going to return 1 and roll. Same thing applies as before. So Bruno's going to keep his die. That was this one. And Boris is going to use his first reroll. Good grief. And he's going to use his second reroll. Golly, look at that. Dadgummit. Nothing. Remove it from the game. That is hideous. Okay, so search for furniture. You may ignore this card or search for furniture, return 2 exploration cards, or raise the noise and roll. Raise the noise by 1 and roll for noise to draw and resolve 1 finding from the finding deck. Now, this is marked private, which means that the civilian card that we pulled earlier will be in effect. So if we decide to do this and take items, then we're going to have to roll the d10 for each character. And depending on that roll, their misery may possibly increase. I'm going to say let's do it. And we're going to do it by raising noise by 1 and roll for noise. and hope I can roll something other than a 1. Okay, well, a 2 is definitely not a 1. Good lord. Civilians, place this card on the exploration slot until you leave this location. Whenever you take anything from an exploration card marked as private, roll the black die. You may return 1 exploration card to talk or trade in. At the end of scavenging, shuffle this card back into the deck. So I'm not going to do anything with that. That resets the noise back to 1. And then draw and resolve 1 card from the findings deck. And I'm going to go ahead and use the basement entrance card here. It says also you may discard this card during the scavenging to draw and resolve 2 finding cards instead of 1. So I'm going to go ahead and use that, and we're going to pull 2 findings cards. And the findings cards will give us, and this is furniture. So we look at the card. Is furniture is what we got here because it says search the furniture. So we're going to look here at the furniture entry. So we have vegetable, goes to the findings pile. We have a weapon part and a shell. There's a shell and weapon part. And then it says, then roll the black die for the special findings. So like I said, each location has a special findings chart. We're going to roll the black die for that. Ooh, nice. Oh, yes. We rolled a 9, baby, and that is canned food. And then the second one here is under furniture. We've got another vegetable. Herb and bandages. Vegetable, herb, and bandages. There's meds, where's bandages? There it is. There they are, I guess I should say. Bandages. Okay, so there's the 2 findings cards, and again, roll the black die on the special findings chart. Oh my gosh. And we find number 10. That's a knife. Sweet. That's awesome. Holy cow, this is great. And then we shuffle these back into the findings deck. So I've got them all in here. Shuffle. And give them a good shuffle here. Boop-a-doop-a-doo. Alright. That's done. And this goes into the discard. Alright, next card. Climb up. So we can either return 3 exploration cards, which we don't have 3 to return, so that's not an option. So either we can climb and potentially they are going to take wounds, or we can end exploration. We only have 2 cards. I really don't want to take wounds. So I think we're just going to end the exploration. So what happens in this phase is we put all these exploration cards back over here into the exploration deck, and we give all these a good shuffle. I hope in future expansions, I don't know if they'll make any or not, but if they do, that there'll be a lot more exploration cards added. I mean, maybe they could even add another board for another location or something in addition to the specific locations. I don't know. They do have an alternate side of the board that's that can be used for one of the expansions specifically, or especially, I should say. That makes it a little bit more of a challenge, but that's once you know what you're doing. And that's not me. Alright, and these 2 civilian cards will go back to the residence deck. So we'll get that a good shuffle. Okay. Let's go there. Now we pick findings. So the way this works is we look at the total inventory, which in this case is going to be 9. And we can carry up to 9 weight worth of items. Now, some items, like for instance these vegetables, the herb, the bandages, the shell, they have no weight. So they do not count towards our weight limit. However, the canned food, the weapon part, and the knife do have 1 weight. Now, the other thing is, when you're scavenging, is wood, components, and water can be added to this, okay? So even though we didn't find it, we can add as many of any of those as we want. Those all have a weight of 1. So right now we're at 3 of 9 weight. So we don't have any water. So I think we definitely need to take back 3. I'm going to say, if I say 4, actually, you know what? We have a lot of components and a lot of wood. We can always poke about. I'm going to take about all the rest of the weight, all 6 of the remaining weight, which will give us a total of 9 in water. Okay. So in this case, we're taking everything that's here. But under normal circumstances, anything that we did not use, we would return back to the supply box over here. And that completes, oh gosh, hold on. I forgot to roll for this scavenging. Dang. Alright, let me roll the D10 for the scavenging. So, at the end of the scavenging phase, but before the choose finding stage, roll the black die. A 2. If the result is equal to or less than the number of thug figures on the findings pile. If the result is, alright, so, gosh. If the result is equal to or less than the number of thug figures on the findings pile, find a thug's card in the residence deck and resolve it. If the result is equal to or less than the number of soldier figures in the findings pile, if the result is equal to or lower than the number of soldier figures and the number of thug figures, choose and resolve. Okay, so because we didn't put that soldier up here earlier that we put on the outside up here, nothing happens. And so this card is telling you, basically, you go through the residence deck, and remember I told you that there were negative cards that go into the residence deck? Well, this card will potentially make you pull one of those cards to interact with before you do the choose findings. But in this case, because we haven't put anything up here in the findings, we don't have to worry about that. But that's how that would work. So what I did was fine. Now, you do not immediately move all this stuff down into your storage, because you have to think of it from a story perspective. At the same time these guys are scavenging and whatnot, we've got Amelia over here guarding our stuff. Okay. So, and this is going to be good, because if we make it back with a knife, that's going to give her a better chance of fending off any would-be attackers. So we go to Night Raid. Draw and resolve the top card of the Night Raid deck. So that's going to be this card. It is Starving People. Damage any 4 tokens or resources, starting with green tokens, and 1 wound. Now, the thing with this is, roll a combat die for each character on the guard space. Because Amelia is on the guard space, we roll 1 die. Because Amelia doesn't have any weapons, she's unarmed, she is rolling they call it a white die. I would say it's gray die. So you're going to roll the gray die. Alright, so we're going to roll that, and she gets nothing. Now, she does have a prowess of 1, So she can re-roll that once, and she still gets nothing. So that roll would have um, that roll would have minimized or allowed us to decrease the number of wounds or the amount of damage that was done. So in this case, we have four damage is 4 tokens and 1 wound. So we could have said, okay, if we had say rolled 2, right, 2 fists, we could have taken and made it 2 tokens and 1 wound, or 3 tokens and no wounds. We can distribute that however we want. But in this case, we have to do the full amount. And that's token. It says token / resources starting with green token. So anything green we have to give up. So that's 1. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this card right here and put this on it to make sure we show everything there. All right, so here's the card. There's 1 green. Then we've got to get rid of 3 more tokens. 1, 2. Well, we'll do 3 wood. Is what we'll get rid of, because we do have a lot of wood. So get rid of 3 wood. That takes care of all the tokens. And then 1 damage. Damage is assigned however you want to. The total damage assigned, split up however you want amongst everybody guarding. Well, Amelia's the only one guarding, so she will take 1 wound. So now she has hunger 1, fatigue 1, misery 1, wound 1. So you can see how these stats start to really stack up. In a night raid, again, we would have had to roll. Oh wait, crap! I didn't do that. I keep forgetting that. Okay, night raid. Roll the black die immediately after drawing a night raid card. I did not do that, and I got an 8. If the result is equal to or less than the number of soldier figures, 8 is not equal to or less. Each soldier figure on the outside of the space race is the damage of each night raid card by 1. Each thug figure on the outside space race is the wounds of each night raid card by 1. Oh wow! So that means the damage means we'd have to lose another, because there's 1 soldier, 1 more item, so we'll lose the component, right? And that is all of the items. And that's the end of the night phase, night raid. Door space. All right, so I'm assuming that means, yeah, afterwards remove this card from the game, so that goes away. So this is what I was talking about earlier. So now we have what they call crime wave as part of the night raid. And this, oh, let me say this too. We don't have any, so I didn't think about it. But one of the things that we can do is we can build something that will let us build what they call board up tokens that I talked about earlier. That did have to do with the cold, but that also during the night phase acts basically as a shield. So for each board up token built in a place that we have shown, so for instance, right now we can build one here. I think that's the only place we can build. We can build 2. We can build 1 here and then 1 over there. It reduces the damage by 1, so it does also help prevent people, because you're kind of packing in the holes that people can get through that do try to raid you. And yet can either reduce 1 wound or 1 damage, however you see fit. But since we don't have any, that didn't matter. Shuffle 2 cards, either resident or night raid cards, into their decks. And again, these are going to be bad cards. So I'm just going to do one of each. So there is a Resonant card. There is a Night Raid card. And then we will shuffle those into their respective decks. And I'm going to try to move this over because it's easier for me to get to over here. Yes, there's room for it. Cool. And there's still enough room for that. All right. Those down there. All right, and so there's the cards. So here's the Resonant deck. Put that in the Resonance deck. There it is on top. And shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. So now we have potentially a bad combat card in here to deal with at some point. These are not really thick decks, but they can be troublesome, certainly. Okay. So there's the Night Raids deck shuffled. So then the next phase is the Dawn phase. The Scavenging Party returns. So all of our characters move back here. They bring with them all of their stuff. And remember, we had 6 water that we found and 3 weight worth of tokens, which was the weapon part, the canned food, and the knife. If it does not have a weight icon on it, it does not count for weight. So the shell, the vegetables, the herb, and the bandages that we brought back are not going to count for weight, so we can still bring all those back. So there's all those. Also, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and trade out one of these in the 5 space lumber and go ahead and put 5 actual wood in the supply in our storage. All right. So assign meds and bandages. If there are any meds, herbal meds, bandages, you may assign them to the ill wounded by placing on the character's card. Amelia is wounded, but not severely, so I think I'm going to save the bandages. Yeah, I think I'm going to save the bandages. Definitely don't want to use them, and we could use them later. Draw a fate card. Alright, so there's the fate deck over here. So we draw the top card off the fate deck. It says, raise the wounds of all wounded, unbandaged characters by 1. Crap. So Amelia's going to go to wounded 2. Lower the illness of all characters who took meds by 2. Nobody did. Discard the meds tokens from all characters. Meds tokens from all characters. Okay. If cold tokens minus board ups equals 5 or more, raise the illness of all characters by 1. Cold tokens 0. Board up token 0, so that's nowhere near. Exchange the nearest small location. Okay, so exchange the nearest small location. So what we do is we start with the top because that would be the nearest, and we look for something that says small. Each location is either a small, medium, or large size. We start with the closest. That's what it says. Exchange the nearest small token. So the nearest location is medium. That doesn't count. The next location is small. So that ruined villa will go away. And let's see here. Let me look something up right quick to verify. I believe if I exchange it, that it just goes on the bottom and we can't reuse it. I don't think that we shuffle these all back in together. Let's see here. Nearest means nearest more. If you're using card or incomplete, take the random after the waste back, shuffle and create a note. Yeah. Yep. That's what I thought. All right. So these locations basically will go away. These would go into what I talked about earlier, the waste bag. So this is the ruined villa. It's going to go away. But because we don't have a waste bag, I'm just going to put it on the bottom. Once we cycle through all the locations, if we manage to cycle, which we probably won't, then we would shuffle them all and basically create a new locations deck. What happens once we do that, everything shifts down. And I forgot to do... Yeah. So remember, now, let me remind you this. Remember the reality impact card we got where we searched the warehouse? It stays there until the warehouse is removed, right? So until we remove this location, that card is stuck underneath there. So we removed the small location, and we're going to scoot everything down, which means the far location. Wait a minute. Yeah, it was the same way. And we're going to replace it. We have a derelict squat. Is what it's replaced by. And we draw 2 narrative action cards, choose one, and shuffle the other back into the deck. So here's our narrative actions. Basically, this card is a helper for us. 1, 2. And we're going to choose, we have headshot, play during combat or during a backstab. If you're using firearm, discard 1 ammo to automatically kill an enemy. Play during the night raid phase. If the character on guard duty has a firearm, discard 1 ammo, automatically ignore 1 night raid card. Do not have any ammo or weapon yet. Night Owl. Play at the beginning of the evening phase. Choose 1 character. This character may now perform all of their actions again as if it was the day actions phase. Oh, wow. Yeah, we're definitely holding on to Night Owl. That's awesome. So we take this card. It doesn't get discarded from the game. It just gets put back. We'll put it back right there. Sounds good. Into the narrative actions deck. Then we shuffle this deck up again. Get it in there. And give it a good shuffle here. Shuffle, 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 shuffling. Shuffling. Oh, goodness. All right. So that is narrative actions. Let's see here. No, we also have to check at the end if any of the if any characters died or abandoned the group today. We roll a die, and potentially misery could go up, but nobody has left or died, so that's cool. We don't have to worry about that. And okay, that's it. And we start a new day. So that is one. That's one day gone through, and we have about 2 weeks worth of that. So it's definitely gonna take us a while to do this. So anyway, that is this war of mine. Hopefully you guys enjoy this, and like I said, I'm gonna keep playing this. I think it's a really cool game, and I hope you guys do enjoy it. Gonna keep playing, and we'll see how things turn out. This is gonna take a while, but hopefully you guys will enjoy it. I'm enjoying it. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.